Hello, everyone. This is Introduction to Counseling, and today we're talking about person-centered therapy, part one. So, this kind of therapy stands in marked contrast to the kind of therapeutic approach that Sigmund Freud took in psychoanalysis. And Carl Rogers was really all about the connection that he made with clients. He didn't have people lay on couches or recline, and he wanted them to see him and for him to see the client. And he really developed some very relatively simple skills that increase the connection and the relationship that you have with your clients. Now, he did a lot of his work in the 40s and 50s and 60s, even 70s. Passed away in 1986. But one of the best things he ever said was this, that tells you a lot about how he thinks about people. He said, in human beings, there is an actualizing tendency, a trust in a constructive directional flow towards the realization of each individual's full potential. And what that means is, perhaps more simply, is that we have a natural, innate push to become all we can be, as the Army used to say. Okay? So he was someone who was influenced by a lot of the work he did in child guidance. And I'll more on that in a bit. But he depending upon who was describing his therapy or whether he was describing it, this can sometimes be called non-directive therapy or Rogerian therapy, Carl Rogers, client-centered therapy, person-centered therapy. He didn't like the idea that it was sometimes thought of as too easy, and didn't like it that he was, as a result of that notion, dismissed in some ways. He really had to fight for the recognition of this kind of therapy being effective, and had to show it experimentally, which he essentially did. So another thing he said was, and this will tell you how much he didn't like psychoanalysis as a way to improve people's lives. He said, the past has its charms, but nothing new ever happens there. So psychoanalysis, being a process of very deep exploration of the past in one's life, was something he really didn't think was useful. Okay. Well, he was born right after the 20th century started in 1902 in Midwestern Illinois. He trained for the ministry but thought it was too rigid. But he did retain many of the values associated with his religious upbringing. And he was a key advocate, a key player, if not the key, one of the main dudes in humanistic psychology. So he, as I said, worked a lot in child guidance, and he wanted to have a practical, pragmatic way to do psychotherapy that was a departure from the rigidity and restrictions of classical psychological sciences. He was concerned about the way that people treated each other and how particularly children were treated by parents and society. He believed that children would develop a good sense of themselves and develop a good sense of their own self-worth and self-regard if important people in their lives, mainly parents, but also teachers and others, treated them as valuable and worthy. Sounds simple. It isn't. So let's go the opposite direction. He said, when people treat each other in ways that are harsh and manipulative or self-serving, conditionally, in other words, I'll love you if you do this, or if you become this, or if you act this way. That's conditional love. Then there grows from that what he called conditions of worth. Okay? So those conditions, he said, clearly made it difficult for a person to become a full functioning person, and instead they would be constantly through their lives trying to find ways to show that they were worthwhile. The earlier the messages, the deeper the messages. I think we can generally say that's true about most things. So the person-centered approach assumes that clients are the ones to be trusted to select their own counselors, how many times a week they want to see somebody, how long they want it to go, what they want to talk about, whether they even want to talk at all, what things to explore, what insights to have, that they in fact must be honored and trusted to be the architects of their own lives. That's what he said as the driving ideas behind the way therapy should go. Now, he had a theory of self. There's lots of different theories of self and what the self is and how it develops. So again, let's talk about this. He said that the most innate tendency is the drive towards self-actualization, this being all you can be. Okay? And that the individual subjectively feels and interprets the things going on around them as the only reality that exists. Of course that's true, particularly in childhood, right? Children, all the way through adolescence, tend to be essentially not self-centered, but unable to see many other points of view. Everything seems to point right at them, you see. And so the experience of self in these interactions, subjectively interpreted by the individual, are the way that the personality is formed. So it is with interactions with others that develops the self, not independent of interactions with others. Now, when we are the way we are, and we behave the way we are, and the way we want to be, that's called congruence, and the person would be self-actualized. So what you want to be and how you are and how you behave, that's all congruence. And not everyone behaves congruently. Not everyone feels congruent. Not everyone is congruent. Well, when the way we actually are and our ideal self are different, then there's confusion and tension, and then maybe even maladaptive behavior, because that's what we call incongruence, and that's what people come to therapy about, essentially, is their incongruence. They don't know that. They don't put it in those terms, but that's the basic reason people come to therapy. Now, we grow up congruent if we are accepted and prized and loved for who we actually are. That's called, in his words, unconditional positive regard. Okay, unconditional positive. So we have positive regard for you as a person. We respect you as a person. We love you as a person. There are not conditions attached to that. You don't have to do or say or be or act in any particular way for us to feel our love for you and respect you as a person. That does not mean that you accept any behaviors as being okay. That's not the same thing. Okay. So, what are the characteristics that parents have that foster a healthy self-structure? One is that they accept and delight or appreciate openly a child's feelings and strivings, no matter what the feelings or strivings are. That they accept their own feelings that certain behaviors are not desirable. That the communication of acceptance of the child as a person is made on a regular basis in terms of their emotions and their effort. All children make efforts to understand the world. All children make mistakes. All children choose behaviors, some of which are really good ones, and make decisions, and sometimes they don't make good ones. And we accept them as a person, and when they make decisions or do things that are not acceptable, we teach them how to do the things the right way, and we explain to them why those were the wrong ways. But we don't hit children. I'm adding that myself. You don't hit people that you love, do you? I think not. So what you're doing in his formulation is you're avoiding conditions of worth. Okay? So what does congruence look more like? Let's open this up and go a little deeper. If you are congruent, then you are open, authentic. Who you say you are is who you are. On the outside as the inside, they match. And your communication with others matches what you think and feel at a much deeper level, at a true level inside you. And Rogers even said, I have found in my relations with persons that in the long run, it does not help at all to pretend to be something that I am not. That's what he said. Yeah. So what is his therapeutic approach like? His approach is one that involves removing the speed bumps and obstacles so that the client can move forward, that they free them up for normal growth and development. So what that means is being fully present with the client, fully understanding, and also helping them understand, using the techniques he devised, to help them truly understand and accept their own feelings and desires and thoughts. Okay, this is being non-directive. This is being non-directive. Okay, that's what that means. Okay, so the Rogerian therapist lets the client deal with what they consider important at their own pace. We don't rush them at all. Okay, so what happens is, he decides and has discovered and proved, is that clients move away from facades, from phony exteriors, away from oughts, and trying to please people as a goal in and of itself. Moving towards being real, moving in their own direction that they want to have, and moving towards positively valuing themselves, and learning to see the excitement in that process rather than being stuck and static. They value inner and outer experiences. They value and are sensitive to the acceptance of others. And as they are, they develop greater ways to have closer relationships with other people. Okay. Now, what are the general characteristics of psychological health of adults? Okay, let's just look for a moment at this, according to Rogers. First one is having an openness to new experience. Okay? This is one of the 5 factors in the 5-factor model of personality. Openness to experience. Second is living existentially. That means understanding that we're all going to die, that you have a finite life on this earth. Whatever you believe about anything else is beside the point of this issue of existential living, that you understand that gives you a limited time to do what you want and become who you want to be, and to accept that life sometimes has difficulties and sometimes has ecstasy and most of the time not either of those extremes. The third thing is that a person trusts their own self. They trust themselves. Along with those, he had several others. One is that they're not afraid of what they feel. They're not afraid of their emotions. Second, that they are not determined by anyone or anything. And third, that they live in a creative way. They access creative processes and are not stuck doing the same thing over and over again. Okay? All right. A few other things that he's talked about in different ways in different publications is one's transparency, revealing yourself as a person who's imperfect and striving as you relate to someone else. Now, that doesn't mean opening up your life to everybody, including people you don't know. No, but as you develop a relationship, you become more transparent. But even at the superficial level, you don't pretend to be someone or something that you're not. That you have unconditional positive regard. You give a person your full caring attention without judging, without evaluating. He said, I'm quoting here, "It is a kind of liking which has strength and which is not demanding." Nice. And that we have a willingness to be separate from someone else. We have different feelings, different beliefs, different goals, different values, different ways of being in the world. And that's okay. That's okay. All right. So, part 2 coming up.